The magic moment was when I looked at my 12 schmendricks, as the phrase goes, yelling Italian ices, chipwiches, fudgicles, milk. Within 1 hour, I sold out the entire cooler for $125.
What's up, everybody? So what does it take to be the best? What does it take to be like Michael Jordan? A lot of people think it was just skill, talent, and if you've been in a box or you've been looking for something to do during this quarantine outside of growing a beard, you can watch a little show on ESPN called The Last Dance, which was shot in 1998, and they've released it now 22 years later. But it's really interesting to see the greatest player of all time, what really went into making him great. And we hope to share some of that with you today, what we learned from watching it, what it took to get to the playoffs, to win the championships. So with that, thanks for joining us. Today's show sponsor, Achieve Health Alliance. If you didn't see the intro, you saw High Stakes Advising. Super Early Bird ends tomorrow. Go ahead and check that out in the comments section below. But I wasn't around to watch Michael Jordan. I was very young. He was pretty much done by the time I was 14 or 15, but one gentleman did get to see it, and his name's Craig Lack. Craig?
Booyah. Yeah. I was there, man. It was prime time. I was still living the dream, playing hoops every Saturday, taking my kids to kids club, owning the Sports Club Irvine gymnasium. And, I tasted it. I played in the NBA Summer Pro League coming out of college, played against all the NBA guys. It was a riot. I realized they're big guys. Yeah, big guys. And so Michael Jordan, yeah, he broke my heart. He beat the Lakers. But we got over it and got our fair share from the 80s. So, that was the story. The 90s came, and he told Bird and Magic, hey, it's the 90s. Your time's over.
Yeah, it was cool to see him battle through against Bird and Magic, and literally how good he was out the gate, putting like 50 points up in the playoffs, and they all basically knew this guy was the best player when they saw him. I think in the second year, but I missed all of that. I did see it later in his career, but I wasn't a fan because he was always kicking everybody's ass, and I was a Knicks fan, and he obviously beat us in the playoffs. So I got sick and tired of seeing it because the Knicks weren't going to go anywhere, and they weren't going to go to the championship with Jordan in the game. And obviously during retirement, we were able to get there. But let's say hello to a couple of you in the crowd here joining us. What's up, Wendy, Mark, Sherry, Tim, Lynn, Nicholas, Jerry Cole, Eric. If you're watching the Last Dance, go ahead and type yes below. If you're just joining us, we're going to be talking about The Last Dance. So I thought it was very similar to what we are in our industry. Everything is done to get to the playoffs to win this championship. And our championship, if we could put it into perspective, is, if you would agree, Craig, is the goal that you set for the year, right? If I hit that goal, that super goal that I built out to whatever I want, that's the championship. And what is the playoffs? Well, I think the playoffs is the fourth quarter. Everybody knows 30 to 50% of the business renews in the fourth quarter. And that 1-1 is very important. Sets the stage whether you count it for the end of the year or you count it for the next year. But that's where you want to be. That's where all the action takes place, in that fourth quarter. But, a lot of us get to the fourth quarter, go through it, wake up in January and go, I didn't hit my goal. I thought I was going to do this. We start making excuses. We say, well, next year, or it didn't go well. And maybe I remember saying, maybe a couple of counts went my way, I would have had a good year. And you never want to put the blame on yourself. Craig, what do you think? You had that problem when you were doing brokerage?
Hey, I had every problem known to man doing my brokerage. That was the school of hard knocks, man. It takes a long time to figure it out when you're on your own. I went out on my own at 24 after 18 months being out of school. And, I had to learn while doing lots of different things. Squirrel. Did a lot of different things, a lot of different shiny objects, and landed on benefits because I liked the consistent cash flow. I was like, hey, this is like an annuity stream. This is kind of cool. And so 1997, I said, all right, that's all I'm doing. And then by 2001, set, cruise control, pretty much chilled for a decade. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember you telling me you going into retirement during this, and I think some of the listeners, some of you guys listening, maybe you're in retirement. Craig went into retirement for 10 years, hung out with his kids. Some of you may be coming out of retirement, getting motivated. I talked to a lot of you, and you were cruising too, and now you want to come out of retirement. But what you have to realize, even if you're semi-retired, we can call it, is you're never going to be as good when you're in the game and you're practicing the game. So when you're in this game, you can't expect to get the outcomes you want when you're coming out of retirement and you don't put in the time. And what you saw in this show of The Last Dance was Michael Jordan was on top of the world. He wins 3 championships. He loses his father. He's mentally exhausted after the 3 championships and I think 12 years of being in the league. And he decides, you know what, I'm done. I'm at peace with it. I want to retire. He goes into retirement and does what he always wanted, which was be a professional baseball player. And, say what you want, but if you watch the thing, you could see he started out and he started getting better and better and better in baseball. They beat him up for it because obviously he was so great in basketball. But the reality is you fast forward 18 months into baseball. So he missed the first year. I think it was 94. And then you come to 95, and here are the Bulls. They're, I think, 30-30. They're a mediocre team. They're just over 500. And one of the players says, hey, come on, why don't you come join us and practice with us at the center? Everybody would love to see you. So what happens, of course, he practices once, he practices twice, he practices 3 times his size. You know what? I'm coming back. I'm coming out of retirement. I want it again. So you fast forward into the playoffs here. And meanwhile, he didn't play all year. He didn't have camp. He didn't have his conditioning. He didn't practice. He didn't put in the time to be ready to excel in the playoffs and win the championship. So what happened? He comes back at 85%. It's round 2. They get beat by the Orlando Magic, who Horace Grant was on his team 2 years before. And, so that really burned him up. And, he said, I just didn't have it. I didn't put in the time. My body wasn't right. My conditioning wasn't there. I built up myself for a baseball body, and I didn't have the basketball body. And everybody sure as stuff said, Craig, right? Hey, he's done. He can't do it. He's not the same player, right? I mean, what was going on then when that happened?
Yeah.
Just constant doubt?
Just some additional background that wouldn't be in the story, but for all of the non-Chicago fans, there was a conspiracy theory at the time that Michael Jordan and Commissioner David Stern made a deal because Michael Jordan was a prolific gambler. And the rumor was that he bet on NBA games, which was a no-no. So him and Commissioner Stern made a deal to say, hey, go do something else for a while, right? It's all going to be water under the bridge later, and then you can come back later. So who knows whether any of that's true. That's just for the conspiracy nuts out there. You can go and run with it. But no, I mean, he was MJ. He was still young enough to just be, off. This is what's fascinating about basketball. Okay. I mean, I played at a high level. Tex Winter was my coach before he went to the Bulls and ran the triangle offense with MJ. And then he went to the Lakers and did it. So basketball is a game of split seconds and space. So all you do is, you very subtly, you bump a guy with a shoulder and you just create enough space where by the time he reacts to whatever you do on offense, it's too slow. It's too late. He can't stop you. And so what happens with basketball is if your timing's off, that's when you jam your finger, right? Because when you reach for the ball, it was just slightly delayed. By the time you thought about it, you could see that the steal was going to come up. And by the time you actually reacted, you were a split second slow, you jam your finger. And so this is how it was for him. He came back out. He He wasn't primed. He wasn't prepped. He wasn't at real time yet. And so it didn't take him very long. And once he got there, then what'd they do? Boom. Win, win,
No,
win.
don't jump ahead here, but I think what happens to us is the same thing, guys, is we get to the fourth quarter, we fail, we don't close as much as we do, and we start doubting ourselves and go, maybe I'm done. I mean, how many times do we say, I can't do this anymore? Maybe I'm not that good. This ain't going to continue. And you start second guessing yourself when in reality, the problem is not that you're done, you're retired, you can't do it anymore. The reality is you didn't put in the time in the off season to get ready, right? You didn't go through that conditioning to get to the point where you need to be in the playoffs. So what happens? Michael Jordan is furious, hates to lose, and immediately after the game, so as you see, obviously he decided, I'm not taking any time off. I'm getting right back at it. I hate to lose. And, he thought of, why do I want to fail in front of fans? I want to give it back to them. So if you start to think what is your why? Craig talks about his why, his kids, is your wife. What is it that you want to get back in the game out of retirement, become your best, get to the playoffs, essentially win the championship? And that's what we have to start thinking about. Well, what's going to motivate us to do there? Those of you that in retirement, no judgment, make your money, cruise. But those that want to win, for crying out loud, find a reason why you want to win. It can't just be, I want to make, I want to close more accounts. There's got to be a reason why. And what are some of the things you can do to get better, right? You now have to go and get better. You got to get yourself into shape, conditioning. Some of the things you could do is my sales skills up to date? Is the language I'm speaking, is this old language that I was using 5 years ago that's gone past me? Who am I talking to? Is my marketing skills there? Am I marketing getting ready for the fourth quarter? What do you say, Craig?
Hey, here's what I say. I've talked to so many brokers, and I think the biggest problem with most brokers is they talk themselves out of it. They're afraid. They're so comfortable with selling to 25 to 100-man groups that they will literally tell me with conviction, because they've sold themselves on the idea, I can't sell a 500-man group. I can't sell a 2,000-man group. And it's crazy. And so I tried to educate them on the fact that these stories that we tell ourselves are not true. They're just stories we tell ourselves. And so if you've convinced yourself, maybe you're not just comfortable, but you're also a little afraid, you can't let that get in the way. That's why what John just said, your why has to be big enough. The other big issue is all of you think too small, right? Dan Sullivan started in the 90s, which Grant Cardone is making a living out of 10x your thinking. You can easily 10x every goal you have. And when you find out that you can't reach your 10x goals, maybe it's because you're only hunting rabbits. You're not hunting deer and elk, and geez, the idea of hunting an elephant just scares the hell out of you. They're just stories you tell. Everybody, we all have these tapes. They started when you were 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old, and most of you are not aware that this is a programmable computer. And so you have to change the way you think about it. Look at Michael Jordan. He lost, and he said that was so unacceptable to him. He knew, he had faith, he believed in himself, and he believed in the rest of his teammates that they were good enough to perform at a whole nother higher level. And he committed to doing whatever it took, because all of the successful people in history know the simple formula. Just be willing to do the things that unsuccessful people won't, and success is inevitable.
Yeah, most people ain't competing. Most people are sleeping at the wheel, and getting back on your game is key to having more success to whatever level you want it to be. And it's just about practicing, right? Finding your why. What are those things that you need to get better at? I remember they talked about Michael Jordan, greatest player, score, everything. And they said to him, you know what? they just couldn't help but to find something bad about him. So obviously the gambling thing was one. But a side note on that, he said, listen, I don't have a gambling problem. I have a competition problem. Okay. He was just so competitive to win. But, and touching on that is like, how competitive are you? For somebody like me, I played poker professionally. It was never about the money. This is never about the money. It's all about winning. At the end of the day, it's about competition. What spark can you find to get you going right now? Because some of you need a spark. I need a spark sometimes. Whenever competition comes to the plate or something happens, and Craig will know what I'm talking about, some things that happened recently, it just lights a fire under your ass to go, okay, I got somebody to compete against now. I got a reason to work harder and go after it. And what was it for Michael Jordan in this example? Well, he lost the Orlando Magic, which had Horace Grant on him, who was a previous teammate, and he could not take the fact that they were lifting Horace Grant on top of their shoulders like they won the championship because they beat Michael Jordan in the playoffs. And boy, did that piss him off. So what kind of mindset did he develop? When I first started in this business, I don't know where I saw it. It might have been Jordan Belfort, who's speaking at the event, but I think he said is business is war, win. So I wrote in big letters into my subconscious right in front of me on a soundboard that we used to have between me and my cold caller because it was loud in the cinder block basement. And I put business is war, win. I was ready to go to war against everybody to win. So what did Michael Jordan do? Right? Yeah. So as you could see, he prepared himself to go to war, and it kind of reminds me, he talks about he won championships, guys came in lollipopping around, and it reminds me of guys that, Craig, I don't know about you, that kind of got into the industry. Their dad was successful. They come in, it's not so hard, and they don't know what it's like being in the trenches. So, they weren't there. So he was upset about that. And he had to do. He had to bring them there. So those that maybe came in the agency later that their father started, maybe it's time for your father to kick your ass a little bit and get you back into the trenches, or they already have, to get you to where you need to be to win the championship, because essentially that's what you're going to see happen. What do you say, Craig?
Yeah, it's why 90% of businesses don't survive past the third generation, because, the founders do a lousy job at training their replacements. It's been around forever. And so, MJ was making a great point, right? So Orlando beat him in the second round and celebrated like they won the championship. So MJ knew, hey, man, you guys, we shouldn't have lost, but we weren't prepared. So he took responsibility. Orlando, of course, didn't go on and win a championship, right? Premature evaluation prevents conception, and premature celebration usually prevents championships. So he knew the formula, he knew the game. And so listen to what he said. I had to get their minds ready. It reminds me of the great time I had doing paintball with the kids, 2005 to 2010. So in paintball, you played 10 games Thursday and Friday to figure out who played on Sunday, and you had Sunday paintball. That was everything. If you couldn't play Sunday paintball, you couldn't win championships. We won many, many championships. And so our kids were tested. And my theory, when I trained them, they were, 15, 16. And then, I was done with them by the time they were 20, 21, because they wouldn't listen anymore. And girls were a big deal. So I told them, I said, I taught them, how do you make a diamond? You take coal and you put it under a ton of pressure over and over and over again. So our first 2 years, we played at least 1 or 2 tournaments every month. They got their asses kicked. And it was great, because eventually they understood how to win, how to play in crunch time. And that's what MJ was trying to teach these new guys, was in the last 3 minutes of the game, that's when it's won or lost. And the guys who were going to blink, the guys who were going to doubt themselves because they really weren't believing they could beat Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, that's when they'd miss the open shot. That's when they missed the free throw. And so it is really, truly, in a game of professional athletes where they're all fantastic athletes, the difference, that 10% difference, it's all above the shoulders. It's a mental game. That's what makes the true champions. It's not physical. Same thing goes for our business. It doesn't matter if you have 6 people in the room, like a big box chain store, and go, well, here's our Farm D, here's our Arista Council, here's our communications expert, here's blah, 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 right? You can compete against that if you prepare better and change the playing field so they have to compete with you on a different level than where their strength is.
And he talked about getting yourself into gear and shape, and his team. I mean, a lot of you guys have teams behind you. Do you have are you a prospector and you have a consultant that kind of comes out with you and helps you with the information? Are they on their game? Is your account manager on their game to renew accounts, to get the proposals, the quoting out, get the proper stuff? I mean, I teach my guys now is like, you need to go through the proposal before you ever give it to me and start thinking of how do I beat, even on renewals, Craig, is always like, I want you to envision this. I want you to look at this like we're going after a prospect. Here's the renewal. Tell me how you're going to beat my renewal, right? That's going to protect me on a renewal because it's somebody outside trying to compete against me. There's always somebody knocking on the door to take your account and competing. I always said when I was doing retail, which I'm not anymore, I was on my game. I knew the market better than anybody. I didn't think anybody could beat me or worry about losing a renewal outside of my control. And when I went in there, I always felt like I was a bet, and I put myself in the best position to win those accounts and have a good year and win the so-called championship, which would be hitting your goal. It reminds me of when I played poker and I would take some time off. I would play 4 to 5 times a week usually. Actually, when I was full-time, I probably played 5 to 6. But after that, when I was semi-part-time, whatever, I would play 4 to 5. But what would happen was if I took 2 days or, if God forbid, 3 days off in a row, I was a completely different player. I lost my edge. What does that mean? That means I wasn't practicing every day. So the question becomes is, how do we get prepared for the fourth quarter, right? Practice. What is practicing? You can go on meetings with smaller accounts. Are you cold calling? Are you teeing up meetings and practicing your new pitch, right? We're always refining the talk, the conversation. It's Corona going on right now. What can we utilize in our talks right now that would work? So we had a call with a consultant today that we put a proposal together for, and I said, listen, this is a car dealership. Your story is cash flow here. Mr. Employer, how many cars have you sold in the last 2 months? How does that affect your cash flow? What if we could take the $140,000 a month that you're spending on healthcare, if I could cut it down to 40 for the first 2 months and delay 60 days and have a free loan for 60 days for about $200,000, is that something that would be helpful to keep the business afloat? Right? So I started to come up with a new talk based on the timing, and now that pitch has to be practiced and refined to get it to work. It's not going to just work and come out smooth the first time. It's got to be practiced over and over and over if you want to win. What do you say, Craig?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Nothing just happens overnight. And if you don't know, if you don't know how to discover it, learn it, teach yourself, you got to pay somebody to get you through the learning curve as fast as possible, because that's the fastest way. A lot of people don't have enough prospects. And so you got the added pressure of maybe doubting that you could sell a 350-man group, and then something goes wrong, your laptop doesn't work, and all of a sudden it just starts to, eat away at your confidence. And those are all things where if you have enough reps and you have enough practice, you'll get over that stuff. So you'll overcome those challenges and not lose your confidence.
It reminds me of one of our favorite consultants, advisors, called me up at one time after Craig had done, I think, 5 calls with a prospect talking about Syra. And he said, I don't know if Craig's doing this right. We haven't gotten any accounts yet. I said, it's 5 groups. How could judge that on the sample size? And sometimes it's the same thing on the benefit size where we're like, this isn't working. Well, what's your sample size? How many times have you gone to bat? How many times have you tried this to see if it works? If you go and you have 15 meetings a year or 20 meetings a year, what is your how good do you think you are? Instead of practicing every day.
Are you talking to the right buyer? Right? Hey, Allen Iverson at the same time, right? He had the world famous quote. His coach was busting his balls because he wasn't working hard enough in practice. And so the Iverson, you can watch the old sports videos, like, practice. He just keeps saying it over and over again. Coach is on me because of practice. I mean, now keep in mind, this guy was 6 feet tall. And back in the days when real men wore shorts in the 80s and 90s, not the stuff they wear today, when a little man would go in the lane like him, the big guys used to call it mouse in the house. They'd beat the shit out of you and go, boy, don't bring that in here, right? So they would foul you hard, and that was part of the game. I mean, the 90s was semi-football with your old Brick Nick fans. And Allen Iverson was such a stud in the games. I mean, hell, he was MVP, 6 feet tall in the men's league, right? And he got busted because of practice. So you got to find out, right? Are you selling to the right people? Because it doesn't matter how many appointments you have. If they're the wrong person who can't make the decision, you might as well walk over to the wall and beat your head against the wall. It's pointless. You're selling to the wrong people. So, a lot of it depends on being at the right place at the right time, talking to the right people, having the right tools, the right strategies, the right tactics, the right talk, the right attitude, right? I got a call from my buddy today, and he said, well, the broker wants to send him some logos of clients. And I said, hold on. He just told you to go fetch a rock. I don't fetch rocks, right? And so a little more explanation, but that's the kind of attitude. Watch the old show we did. No is a complete sentence. Most of you are afraid of your own clients, let alone the prospects. You have to learn how to make a prospect treat you as a peer, not a vendor to be toyed with and dissed and ignored.
Yeah. I remember you telling me I was all pissed off about a group, and you go, that's not the problem. The problem is you don't have enough prospects, because if you had enough prospects, you would shake it off and you wouldn't be thinking about this. Today we got notice that we thought we were going to get some groups, and 2 of them turned out to be no's, and they were somewhat, we thought were, at least one was in the bag. And I told Zach, our sales guy, I said, who gives a shit? There's 12 more on the board that are opportunities. It doesn't affect us that much, but if that's all that you got, then you can't win. So the marketing time is now. This is probably, again, I said this when Corona situation started, this could be the greatest time ever for people that take advantage of it. What are you doing to refine? I talked to my buddy Trace McConnell. He says, we're working on our marketing stuff. This is the time to work on your marketing to create opportunities for you later in the playoffs. If you want to win, that's what it takes. I understand if you don't want to win, but if you expect to win, there's practice involved. There's all these different things that we do and we forget about. We just self-doubt ourselves thinking, I'm not that good. Well, it's not really that. You just have to backtrack and look at, what didn't I do? It's like when cold calling. If I didn't have enough meetings or close accounts, it's because I didn't have enough meetings. It's all, you go back and you look how many calls were dialed. So right. You see there, this is the year after that they lost to the Orlando Magic, okay? Self-doubt in yourself, got beat in the playoffs. He should retire. Maybe he doesn't have it. The next year, they were suggested that they were the best team ever. They won 72 games that year. Nobody ever did it. The most ever was won was 69 the very next year, okay? And what did it take? You saw what he talked about and what he did. So those of you that aren't having a good year last year, you could have it this year. I talked to a consultant, literally called me before the show, and I told him what the show was about, and he said, that's funny. It's what happened to me is I had a down year, and what I did was I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this, and I put myself to work, and I got up at 4 a.m. every day, and I had $1 million year the next year. And then what happened? Well, he won the championship, and he decided, I'm going to cruise. I'm going to go into retirement somewhat. And he didn't have that year again next year. And what did it do? It pissed him off. He says, shit, that's not happening to me again. I'm used to winning the championship. Now he went back to work, and this year he's already rocking halfway to that $1 million goal because he put in the time. That's the difference. You take the same person, 1 year to the next, all it was I worked harder here. I didn't work as hard here, and the outcomes show it. You see it there in the year that the Bulls had in 72 wins. You remember that? You remember that year, Craig?
Oh yeah, it was crazy. Nobody had ever expended that much energy to win that many games. Because you got to remember, for 9 years, my client had a suite at the Staples Center. So for 9 years, I went from Orange County to LA, went to games, entertained at a suite in the Staples Center. We had 20 people we could put in that thing, and we would rock it, right? And I could just market all night long until the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. Because primarily in the NBA, until you get to the last few weeks of the season, you only got to watch the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, man. That's when they start busting their ass. And then in the playoffs, it's an entirely different world. So the fact that they just steamrolled people. They cruised to that 72-10. You saw what happened with Golden State Warriors recently, right? So they beat the record, but they expended so much energy. See, here's the mind shift. They just wanted to break the record, not realizing that they expended so much energy, but by the time they were 15 games into the playoffs, they were gassed. They were out of gas, and they lost the championship. They missed the whole point, right? I don't know that the Bulls had the intention when the season started to have the best record. It just happened. And then, of course, their whole goal was, it doesn't mean anything unless we win the championship. And Golden State didn't exactly understand that and paid the price.
It's a good story. Eyeing a prize here, guys. Listen, we're just trying to help you guys, motivate you a little bit, let you know that just because you had a bad year last year or the year before, you've been in retirement, you could still come out of retirement. You see it. You got to the place where you are for a reason. You've already had success, most of you. And the main goal is the championship. And that's where everybody wants to go. So why don't we end it there, Craig? We're going to play the clip from the championship, and we'll close it out with that, guys.
Nice.
We're in the final second. The Chicago Bulls have won the 95-96 NBA championship. Making 4 in 6 years.
Right back at it. Championship year. They finish it. They win the championship. They hit your goal. Go out and hit your goal. Guys, thanks for joining us. We will see you next week. Same time, same place. Heads Up Advisor. Thanks, guys.
Crushed it.
Everybody here is for one reason. I want to learn how to close more business. How do we double our new business next year? And I'm not just talking about revenue. I'm talking about client count. How many prospects do we go see that we can help? Almost all of them. The number one problem everybody has is prospects. But outside of that is, how do I talk in the meeting? What do I say?
Recognizing that you have to talk to different people different ways is the core foundation of your sales communication. It's far superior than saying, I'm going to save you 20 to 40%. Don't do that. Hopefully, I can give you some strategies and tactics to shorten the learning curve to change. All we sell is certainty and confidence. Your prospect either has it in you or they don't.
These guys can't do what we can do, especially the big guys. It's not their business model. So how do we come up with a way that they can hire us, right? So the Trojan horse was born.